Today we are going to talk about real estate agency TIMONDRO, but we know that behind every successful and big company there is always a story of person who created it and was growing it. So tell us please where you were born and what is your background before creating the company.
Sure. I was born in Germany, in Düsseldorf, close to Düsseldorf, Dienstlaken. And then I moved to Hanover. We moved when I was very small, so I studied in Hanover. I worked there for a consulting company, PricewaterhouseCoopers, for many years. And I made the certification as a tax auditor, tax consultant, Steuerberater, we say in German. And then within the whole holding, I moved to Istanbul. Quite some reason we had the same business there as well as here. So what I did at PricewaterhouseCoopers was we were there doing auditing and consulting in taxes, finances, and there's four big companies that dominate this sector, service sector, in terms of finance consulting and tax consulting and auditing. And PwC was the market leader, and we did I was traveling a lot, and we were, very giving extensive service to the customers, the clients that the company had. Also, properties, real estate, and any financial statements, usually, not always, that depends on the business, but they can have a significant impact. And so at the same time, my family, since my mother is German, my dad is Turkish, so I always saw myself as a child of two worlds. So I was traveling a lot between the two countries. Also, the Turkish family, we have properties in Antalya and Istanbul. And my granddad, he was a successful businessman in Istanbul, unfortunately passed away in 2012, 10 years ago. But he was living in Istanbul, so also I studied in the US, I have a high school diploma in the US, high school. Stayed for a year in the US. I stayed for almost a year in Paris, working at that time. So that's a bit my background. Yeah.
Right now, this interview is taking place in one of the offices of TIMONDRO in Istanbul. And as I understood you chose Istanbul as your place for living and working. And after so many countries and experiences and traveling, why did you choose this place?
I just fell in love in Istanbul at a certain point. I couldn't really tell when it happened, but over the years I've seen, different cities. I haven't seen all of them, obviously. There's so many, but from what I've seen so far, Istanbul is just the water, the Bosphorus, the sea, the Marmara Sea, the Black Sea. It's just this ancient history. It's like wherever you go, you always see something new. Then you have the metropolitan city life, which I like, but the combination with the nature. You can go, for example, this summer I was every Sunday was just a 1 hour trip to one of the islands, and I was swimming the whole day and then came back. And next Monday I'm working in the office. So this combination, it's the cost of living also has a little bit had an effect in the past that you can hear with the same money you can do a lot more here, yeah. And it's just. And then we had the properties here from the family, there was a lot of business happening here. So it's a combination. I didn't plan it like this, it just happened. But Istanbul is beautiful. I couldn't imagine living in any other place right now than Istanbul.
Did you create a company in Istanbul and how it was beginning?
Actually, it was founded by our dads, because my brother is also we're working together. He's responsible for the Mediterranean part of the business, Antalya, Alanya, Belek. And my dad founded at that time. We supported my dad obviously at that time, but it was mainly him doing it. 2007, I think. So, quite some time has passed.
So your company is working for already 15 years, is it right?
It has been quite some time, yeah, time flew by.
And what is TIMONDRO specializing in?
Well, it's private and commercial properties. We also have sometimes pieces of land, but that's not the main focus. We have mostly properties, the private owners that are selling properties, developers that are building properties, And but what we are doing is we're focused on safeguarding the deal of customers. So we are, as a real estate agency, selling properties for construction companies, for owners, for banks.
Why do you think it makes sense to invest in Turkey?
So we are ourselves quite invested in Turkey, and I think the country has huge potential. It has so for the last 20 years, the markets always went up. There were short-term fluctuations, but for the middle and long run, there was always a very good development, especially in properties, high yields, high returns. For me also, if you ask me personally, it's not only the money, it's it's the food, it's the weather. We have so many sunny days. It's the fresh fruit. Turkey grows significant parts of the vegetables and fruits here and the grain. So then the story, like I said, the country is so diverse. You have so many. For example, Istanbul. I see Istanbul a little bit as a base, and from here you can go to different places. Bodrum, for example, is beautiful for windsurfing, for swimming. Then we have the east of Turkey with this ancient history, this old temple in Göbekli Tepe near Şanlıurfa, which they say currently is 9,500 BC. So that's like 12,000, almost 13,000 years. And or those underground cities in Cappadocia, no one really knows who built them and for what and how old they are. These are just two examples. There's many more. Or all those ancient Greek and Roman sites in the Mediterranean and Aegean part. Old Troya is at that part. And for me, I like history and stuff. So it's just the mixture that then the good medical system in Turkey. I don't like to go to doctors, obviously, but sometimes you need it. And I unfortunately had some accidents from sport. So I have the comparison from Germany and here, because I spent more time in Germany in the past. So the doctors really are very well, especially in the private sector. Of course, you need to pay a bit, but still compared to medical services in Germany and the private insurance, this here is so good in terms of cost. Not every Turk can afford it with local income, but still compared to Western standards, it's very cheap. So it's a mixture of things. Why I personally believe that the prices here in Turkey for property still are very good. You don't find this combination of infrastructure, sea, water, food, medical system, telecommunication with excellent network coverage almost anywhere in the country, even in the countryside. So where do you get this kind of service at that price? That's a bit the way I see it.
But there are not only advantages, there are also always disadvantages of living in some places. If I'm not mistaken, the inflation in Turkey is just officially 80% per year. Is it true?
It's actually even higher. The official rate is 70-80%. We say it's probably 100% or even more. Yeah, that's of course, not everything is perfect. Also Turkey is very, for example, you don't have the same structure that you have in some Western countries. Sometimes it's chaotic. There's a rule for everything. There's a way things get done, but it's more, depending on the person you work with, things that you do. But yes, the inflation. The properties are valued in some properties. Most of them are priced in Turkish lira. And so, but the Turks also are very very good businessmen. Most of them, it's just in their genetic code. When they price the inflation is high in Turkish lira, they check for the dollar and euro, what's worse in euro and dollar, and they adjust the prices. High inflation is always, actually for the property market, sometimes for our buyers, it works to their advantage. Why? Because typically you make a contract, you make a deal, and until you have all completed the payment and the documents, the expert report, the valuation report, a couple of weeks passed, usually 2 to 3 weeks, and at that time, that was what we saw the last couple of months, the Turkish lira depreciates, so you pay less in euro and dollar. This is not good for owners, and the owner, if I would be selling my property, I would probably be wanting to put the extra detail in the contract saying, listen, if the Turkish lira devaluates within that time, I want a price adjustment. But actually, many Turkish owners don't do it, because they're not so. In Turkey, sometimes they are very much focused on the money, but from the little parts of the money, sometimes they don't care so much. So it's to be honest, it doesn't affect us a lot, the inflation, but it's a pain sometimes because you need to adjust the prices all the time. But we don't feel it so much in our business, and it sometimes even works to the advantage of the buyers. But for Turks, the normal Turkish population, it's not good. Those that are working on a salary base, that don't have their own business, because their salaries get devaluated all the time, and for them it's not so easy.
There is a draft law which is saying that probably in future it will be prohibited for foreigners to buy property here or even to rent it in some areas which are connected with the sea. Is that also true?
No. This law is, so what they're doing is, because the elections are close, it's politics a little bit, so they want to, and the prices of properties increased a lot in Turkey over the last years, and also the current war in the Ukraine caused for a lot of demand in Turkey, and so that also pushed up the prices. But so the governments felt that they need to show some action to their voters, and this is just my personal opinion. And so they made a couple of things a bit more difficult for foreigners, like for example, that you can still buy it, but you don't get a residency for that property. So you can buy the property in the area. There's some areas which are officially closed to foreigners in terms of residency, meaning you can still buy it, you can sell it again, after you bought it, you can rent it out, and you can stay 3 months without a visa and another 3 months with a visa, so 6 months a year, but you couldn't get a residency if it's in that specific closed area. If residency is important for you, then it's important to watch out in which area you're investing.
And also why people who want to buy a property here need to use services of agencies, why they cannot just come and buy the property here.
I mean, see, properties, because the value is quite high, what we do is we make sure that a safe deal is being done for both sides. So in this way, we save the customers money, time and energy, and we make sure that there's no legal risks involved. We make a price evaluation according to the market. We check which risks might be involved with the title deed of the property. And also, it's not only about the initial purchase. Usually, not every customer, but quite some customers, they need a comprehensive. It's not finished with selling the property or buying the property. Some that buy, they want to resell later, they might want to rent out. Some that sell, they need support afterwards. Also, maybe tax support or legal support. So we have a lawyer team, we have experts that are checking the legal parts, experts that make the valuation of the properties. Some they need help with the furniture, they need help with residency, they need help with different things, citizenship. And also we are focused, we don't look, as a company philosophy, we don't look, it's not about the business that comes first, it's first the relationship. And with quite some customers, we have kind of friendship relationships, And so just last night I was until 12 o'clock we were at dinner, So I got home late. And last week we were like 2 or 3 times outside with customers who became a little bit more than customers. They're like friendship relationships. So it's a comprehensive part of it's not just buying and selling, but since large amounts of money are involved, it's a comprehensive package that where you need to check quite a lot of things.
What is the difference between your company and other companies, and what is actually the mission of TIMONDRO?
Well, how we initially started at that time, we were buying and selling ourselves more in the southern part of Turkey, Antalya. We had a couple of bad experiences, and we said we don't want anyone else to live through that. Making sure that you get the right value for your money that things really are as they are promised to be said, and not just to be able to rely on someone saying it, but actually checking the background, making sure that legally everything is safe. That's kind of the idea we had at the beginning, that let's make sure that things can be safe. If you want to invest somewhere, even if you speak the language, or even if you don't, that you have the chance of getting the same fair access to the market as a local. So we have, because our customers are not only locals, they are foreigners, both. So we wanted to make sure that, because Turkey is so beautiful and has so much to offer, that people have a fair access. The way everything is in price, and it should be that even if you don't speak Turkish, you should be able to get the same access at the market price like a local. That's kind of what drove us at the beginning. And there's one part from my side a little bit, when I took over more responsibility, that, because I was educated in this consulting firm, PricewaterhouseCoopers, for years. It's the customer needs to be happy in the end. That's how you make long-term business also, because people come back to you. That's also what we see when people are seeing that you really take an effort, and this hands-on mentality that they have, that we learned there, that's kind of what we also brought to TIMONDRO.
Do you have your favorite case?
Well, I wouldn't call it favorite, but something that I definitely will not forget, and that when it was finished in the end, it satisfied me a lot, because there was the seller and the buyer, they were so difficult. Both had cancelled the deal and stood up from the table at least once, I think twice even. And I brought them back together because I knew that for the buyer, they had invested quite some time and energy, and they were very scared from the beginning because there were some things in the title deed that they didn't understand. And then there were lawyers involved from both sides, and the lawyers had an ego a little bit, they were difficult. Then the seller was difficult because they felt that their integrity was questioned. Turks can be very emotional. So for German, if I ask, or English, or maybe Russian, or if I ask specific details, they might just answer and say, okay, it's an understandable question, but sometimes, not always, but sometimes for Turks, if you ask too many questions, they feel like you're questioning their integrity. So, that's kind of what happened, and then they stood up from the deal, and, I put them, it took forever, a lot energy, I spent so much time with it, but in the end, we were able to do it, and I was just happy for both sides.
What is the secret of strong growth of TIMONDRO for the last period?
I think it's the combination that, we were driven by this kind of transparency and making sure that people don't have to go through what we went all that time ago. And also everybody that we employ and we work with, they get the same trainings. Then, this combined with this hands-on service mentality from PwC, from PricewaterhouseCoopers, that we also implemented here, that one of the mottos is solve important problems. Now you can argue, for each customer but for every single customer buying this property, for them it's an important issue. Maybe I wouldn't say problem, but when it's a property, there can always be some problems that arise, and not every problem means that you can't do the deal, but you need to be able to assess how significant is this problem now or not. Sometimes, even if it's to our disadvantage, we might advise to cancel the deal, and we might lose that customer forever because maybe he might not ever come back, or he might change his mind, or he will go somewhere else. But if we have the feeling that the customer, okay, they might buy the property now, because they don't see the disadvantage, but we have the feeling that after half a year or a year they will not be happy, I warn them about, and I say, listen, I wouldn't advise you to do it. Don't do it right now, and then we lose in that time financially, but we safeguard the customer. And that's kind of, then this customer tells this to others, to friends, to colleagues, to family, and that's kind of what we saw. So and they know that they can trust the company with the investments they want to do. We don't care about the one business, about the deal, but we care about that the customer is happy afterwards for a long time, and we have a long-term relationship and they come back. when they hear or they live in here, they ask, you know, hey, let's do something, let's have coffee, let's go for dinner, let's do something. So that's when you see, that's kind of the kind of feedback when you get that, you know that you're doing something right. And that's what we've seen in the past years. I think that's what kind of led to the rapid growth. So also one important part is that, you know, we're giving kind of, it's like we're not taking extra money for something. We're just, customers, they need to find schools for their children. They need to find, some customers want maybe some very luxurious furniture. Some don't want to spend any money at all. They want to get the cheapest, just furniture, you know, because I will be just using it for 2-3 times a year. Maybe in the meantime I want to rent it out. So then you have a spot market seller for furniture, you know, very, from the outside they look very simple, but they're actually able to deliver at a very low cost. Or they need some things solved with the tax authorities. Or some customers, they want to make changes to their property, maybe increase the flooring, which is officially not allowed, mostly. But if you have the right construction company that is doing it, and then, you know, you need to be able to manage the process. I don't want to say too much on video, but you know, it needs to be managed the right way. Then you can do it. Maybe you get a little tax punishment that you need to pay, but still that's worth the hassle because you get a expanded property. Sometimes also I might not advise for it if it's really difficult and if the customer wants to make too much, but you know, so we don't, it's very rarely that we say no to something. You know, we try to solve whatever the issues the customers, mostly just because we want to make them happy. Yeah.
How do your customers look like? If you will draw the portrait of your customer, what it will be?
Very different. You know, some are very young, some are older, some are working, some are retired, and some want to, so we have national customers here, Turks, we have foreign customers from very different countries. It can be all Western countries that you can think of. It can be East European countries, the US, you know. In the past, I was, when I initially came to the business, I was surprised, why would someone from Florida or California come to Turkey all the way? And what they usually say is, it's a couple of things they say. One is culture, they like the culture. Most say is the cost, because the US is supposedly, I haven't been there for a long time, but they say it's very expensive. And we had, last week we had a very interesting businessman. He bought a sea view property to later be able to give it to his son tax-free, because in Turkey it's quite nice that they have a short tax-free period. So after 5 years you can sell the property for tax-free. Yeah, so to your family members or to whoever. Yeah, you know, customers are very different. You know, you never know who's going to be coming tomorrow, walking through the door and wanting this or that. So it can be, and that's also what makes the business what I really like. And also I like right now talking to you. You know, it's just connecting to people. That's one advantage compared to consulting. Also, you know, there were some similar things we did, you know, valuations, properties, financial statements, checking deals, making sure that they're safe, trying to get the best conditions, etc. But here I have more, in real estate you have a very intensive connection to your customers. You know, it's like a trusty relationship, a bit like a doctor or a lawyer or even a barber, you know, how do you say it in English, hair cutter. Anyways, once you establish the relationship, you want to feel safe. You know, also me, when I go and buy something somewhere, usually once I, for example, from a motorcycle or a car, if I find a dealer where I feel I get a good deal, usually I go back to the same one again and again and again. You know, so and I like that. I like to connect to people. You know, I enjoy that part.
And last question for this interview, what is your forecast for real estate agencies here and for the market for the next 2 years?
In general, what we've seen, I always, you know, also yesterday I had a discussion with a customer 2 days ago. He was asking me what's going to happen with the property price, and we get some elections coming up in Turkey. So, in the very short period, it's almost impossible to make any predictions, and it wouldn't be, in my opinion, professional. What I do look is at if you look at the larger picture a bit, for the last 20 years, the property prices, the economy, everything increased a lot. And my personal opinion is, no matter how things will go politically, the country, the success of the country, the economical success, the technological advancements that will go on. So the prices will be increasing for properties, also for these areas where we are active in: Istanbul, Antalya, Alanya, Belek, Bodrum, now Northern Cyprus. They have become international brands. Almost no matter where in the world you go, people will know it. Same for Turks. So, and for these areas, demand is always higher than supply, in a very simple economical terms. So there's always a pressure on the prices. Now, will they increase by 20%, by 25 or 30%? This, I think, is not professional really to say. I have an expectation what I think is going to happen, but it's difficult, not easy to predict. But the general direction always has been like this.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Daria. Thank you for being here.